Hello. Thank you so much for joining us for the Align podcast, where we talk all things health, wealth, and relationships. I am one of your hosts, Anna Goff, and I'm here with my co host, Molly Rubish. So glad you could be here today.
I am so excited about this adventure. We are launching something pretty powerful. We have this idea to talk just candidly about all things life, especially relationships, and then we're going to weave in health and wealth in the in between because they don't one doesn't exist without the other, right? And so I think that goes so much into you, like who you are, Anna. Talk about how who you are, how you got here, and kind of what you do in this world.
Yeah, so I am a mom of two. I have a 15-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. So I'm kind of in the thick of it with that. I live in South Carolina and I've kind of moved all over the country. Health and wellness have always been a huge factor for me. I was a personal trainer. I am an integrative health practitioner by training, and it's kind of a huge part of my life. So that has always been my focus. And then a couple years ago, I went through a divorce, and everything kind of shifted. I realized that as a stay-at-home mom, I had put myself in a very financially vulnerable position, and I thought everything was going to be all right. We had two houses, we had the cars, all the things. And, I had always been told one thing about divorce. And when I went through it myself, it was a completely different scenario. It was, you don't divorce the person that you marry. It forced me to look at a lot of things that I had kind of ignored. And I really wanted to help other women navigate the pitfalls, and also just really open up their eyes to the blind spots that so many of us have when we're in a long-term relationship. I was married for 18 years, and it just kind of becomes normal, and then you realize, like, oh wait, that wasn't normal, and that was just my reality. And so I started coaching women online. I've created a lot of digital products, been on a lot of podcasts, and that's what led me to meet you and what led us here. And so hopefully I can bring, my knowledge of all of those things together to help women navigate whatever difficult challenge they're going through in their lives, or just have a cheerleader to get through, these times, because life is full of ups and downs. We know that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. How
Well,
about you?
we met on the internet, like you said, because
Yeah.
like-minded people really can gravitate to one another, and we've spent a couple days together and in person, and really got to know each other and kind of build out this idea and this concept of the Aligned podcast. I too have had a very similar non-linear path in life. I was always a high achiever. I wanted to do well professionally and really took my life seriously. I almost like white knuckle gripped my life to make sure that everything would be perfect. And I found myself in a high stress job in corporate and sales, and in a marriage that was really struggling with two young kids. And I got a divorce. And that was so hard for me at the time, because taking off my ring and announcing to the world that I was a divorced woman almost like suffocated me. I didn't know how to admit failure. I didn't know how to go through that big change in my life. And since then, I had a grief journey when my father died, and that really rocked my world because, again, it's something I can't control, I can't
Mhm.
fix. And
Mhm.
so when he died, I decided to leave my sales job and start something more meaningful. So I started my coaching business. I wrote a children's book, and I thought I was going to have this really broad coaching, women's empowerment business, but what has happened is it really is geared around women going through major changes and major
Mhm.
life changes in their relationships, whether they want to work on their marriage or they want to leave and divorce, and how to effectively co-parent. That is almost taken on its whole own life. And
Mhm.
the good news is I know you and I both coach from and will speak from lived experience. That's what
Mhm.
makes us so unique is we're not just giving advice, we're also sharing stories about the women that we support and our own journeys. So we will be very vulnerable and transparent on what it's really like to just live this big, beautiful life, but also some hardships come along the way.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times, I don't know about you, but I hear this from my clients, like, they don't want to follow the information that could potentially help them until they're at a point, kind of a breaking point, right? And so they're like, "Oh, I didn't wanna follow you before because it was almost like I was gonna jinx my relationship." And then they start following, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I need to know everything." And so I think this podcast is something that, we're not encouraging divorce. We're not encouraging you to have conflict. What we are encouraging you is to do is learn as much as possible, really know that you aren't alone in whatever you're going through. And we want to be a resource. We want to be here to support you, to cheer you on, and to connect you with the right people to make sure that you have what you need, whether that's working with us, whether that's working with someone on a parenting plan or a health coach or whatever it is. We want to be able to be there to help you through this stage of life that so many of us are in, and it really does shift when I think when you get into your 40s especially, there's this epiphany and women really start to take control.
Yeah. Well, and that's why this is called the Aligned Podcast, not just Get Divorced Podcast. It's
Right.
how do you align in your life, whether you want to stay and nurture and repair your marriage. We love that.
Mhm.
If you need to get divorced and that's the best choice for you, that's okay and that's welcome here. If you need to work on your wellness and how you actually care for your body through some of these really stressful things and through our perimenopause and our aging bodies, and how do we work towards longevity? And then, of course, wealth. I mean, wealth is part of our life, and whatever wealth means to you as a listener, it is part of our currency here. This is
Mhm.
what we need to survive. With Anna's expertise in the wealth, and then we both have some experience in the wellness, and then of course
Mhm.
we both have a lot of knowledge in the relationships. We're just
Yeah.
going to really integrate all topics into
Mhm.
being a very aligned, well-rounded woman, and
Mhm.
hopefully just get to live that one big beautiful life that you were sent here to live. Because what we're finding is so many people just follow the path, right? Myself included. Went to high school, then you go to college, then you meet somebody and then you get
Mhm.
married. Then you have the kids and then you
Mhm.
raise the babies through the night and so forth. You get the picture. But then you find yourself sitting here going, "Whoa, I followed all of these steps and now I'm sitting in a relationship that we're so disconnected. We
Mhm.
don't even really like each other. I have lost myself in my motherhood, and I have maybe not cared for my body the way that I should, eating goldfish on for dinner on the way
Handfuls
to
of
this."
goldfish or sharing your kids' snacks. I
Yeah.
know. I
And,
know.
and maybe wealth, we have surrendered our financial well-being to another person, our husband,
Mhm.
and a lot of times that's really scary and that puts us
Mhm.
in a very vulnerable position. So all
Yeah.
of these pillars go into our lives as women, especially mothers, that it's just time to start having these vulnerable conversations. So not only will you and I have episodes, but we will welcome on guests that we have some physicians, an astrologer, feng shui practitioner. We've got some really exciting guests that will come on this season,
Mhm.
and we look forward to having everybody along the journey with us.
Yeah, and I really think it's important to have your team, right? So, it's not that much different than having a medical team if you were going in to have a surgery and you have an anesthesiologist and you have your, you know, nurses and all that. Like you need a team and you need a freaking team even more when you get a little bit older and you're like, "Whoa, this is a lot." And so you might have friends on your team, family members, teachers, financial professionals, coaches. You can't do it alone. And every person is equipped to do all of the things, right? So it's great to be able to build out your team. And that's what we're hoping to do is bring on our team and the people that we have met along the way that have helped us and that align with our beliefs and what we hope to accomplish in this podcast and all of the things that come from this podcast. Something that I love that we talk about all the time, and you have an amazing product or digital download called the Modern Marriage Blueprint. But we talk so much about how we plan for this big, beautiful wedding. And it takes a year, and you pick out the flowers and the dress and the venue, and you have a wedding planner and all of the things. And then you get married, and you're like, holy crap, I didn't plan for my marriage. And that's the thing that's the most important. And so a lot of us get into it, like you said, and we have kids, and then you're just in the throes of children. And then you look up when your kids are a little bit older and you go, who is this person that I married? We are so far apart from where we were when we started. And we didn't have any of these conversations before. And that's what we're seeing with our clients. People stop talking and just start focusing on kids and jobs. And then you look up in 10 years and you're like, I don't like this person that I'm married to. What do I do? Right.
Well, and I love the story of I was Catholic. And so in my first marriage, we went to the pre-Cana. We did all of the stuff that the priest asked us to do. We're getting advice from, we're
Thumbs
getting
up, you're
advice. Yeah. We're getting advice from a priest who's never been married. And he said, how many kids do you want to have? And I said, I want three. My fiance at the time said, I want two. He said, perfect, you'll have five. And I'm like, okay.
What?
And then we just moved on. So I'm like, well, how is this like marriage counseling? This is two people came and said, he wants two, I want three. Maybe we need to talk about that. Like, then does that mean my heart is going to be forever sad that I don't get to have my third child? And the
Right.
priest glosses over it in a way is like, perfect, you'll have five. And
Yeah.
it's almost like a joke. And so
Right.
we treated it like a joke, like, oh, we're just
Yeah.
checking the
Ha, ha,
box
ha.
so we can
Yeah.
get the license and do the thing instead of, hey guys, these are some of the things that you really need
Hmm.
to get clear on. What are you going to
Hmm.
do when Molly wants a third child? Your partner
Yeah.
doesn't want one.
Do
Like,
you know what it reminds me of? Like when you were a little kid and you would be like, I'm gonna marry Joey and we're gonna have 5 kids and we're gonna live in a house that's blue with, pink flowers in the front. I mean, that's like what it is, right? Like what you're
exactly.
describing is literally like, okay, so what kind of car do you want to drive? And what do you,
It's the
like
mash
things
game.
that don't matter at all. Exactly. Exactly. Things that don't matter at all. And you really don't know how many kids you want to have until you've had one. And then you're like, whoa, I thought I wanted 5. This is a lot more work than I thought.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and society prepares us for marriage, and especially in the Midwest,
Hmm.
we that's just what you do.
Yeah.
And you already feel behind if you're not engaged in your early 20s, and you already
Hmm.
feel behind if you're not married and having your first baby and doing these grand reveals. I think the year that we got married, I was also either in or attended like 9 other weddings. It's
Yeah.
like you're being left out essentially. So then at that age, we're all gravitating to rushing to get married, to check the box, to do the next
Hmm.
thing because I had already graduated. And what if I was 30 and I wasn't
Right.
married?
Yeah.
Like,
Then you probably won't
then
even
what?
be able to have kids. Are you nuts? Right? I know. I know, but it is especially I mean, we're both from the Midwest. It is that way, 100%. I mean, I have friends that have grandchildren, like, working on great-grandchildren, and I'm in my 40s, and I still have an elementary school kid, you know? It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I mean, I think that it's really interesting to just pause and say, okay, here I am as a 40-year-old woman in whatever type of marriage that you're in, whether it's one that you want to repair or it's one that you're feeling like is unrepairable and you're ready to leave, or you really need to work on your health and wellness. It's still not too late. We still have arguably another 50 years
Mhm.
to live our lives, but we're almost conditioned to think we've like hit this finish line, right? Because
Mhm.
you had all the boxes to check from graduation and college and getting married and having the babies, and it's like, oh, now I'm this old. Will I ever have joy again? Or
Yeah.
am I too late to repair my life? But if you flip it and think, I mean, we are going to live a long time because we're taking care of our bodies.
Right.
So, I guess, bearing any sort of unforeseen circumstance, we're going to live a long time. So, we have 40 or 50 more years. And this is the opportunity now to, whatever the low hanging fruit is, whatever the one is that you really need to dive into. My argument is it's probably health, wealth, or your relationships that
Yeah,
we need to encompass. So, we're going to
absolutely.
unpack all of that.
Yeah, and I think setting goals for yourself, as you get into your 40s, 50s, I mean, think about all of the things that you have done up until now, right? Everything. We've learned how to do literally everything. And now we have this whole library, like a dictionary of sorts of everything that we have learned over our lives. And we get to take that into the next chapter, the next stage of life with all that knowledge going in, and think about how much faster we're going to be to do things, how much more efficient we're going to be, how much more focused, how much more driven we can be when we don't have to be up changing diapers anymore, and we can actually eat a meal while it's warm and drink a cup of coffee from start to finish without reheating it in the microwave 5 times. This is our prime. We're going into it. We have all of these tools, and we can move forward in whatever way we want to. If that's starting a new career, starting a business. Most female entrepreneurs start a business in their 40s and don't become millionaires until their late 40s or early 50s. Like, it is not too late, and you can do it so much faster now. Same thing with a marriage. If you're in an unhappy relationship and you've been together for 20 years, it's not over, right? People are getting divorced all the time. New people are coming on the market. Your person can be out there and you can find that, right? Things may have been slow if you got divorced in your 20s or early 30s, but shoot, a whole nother market opens up in your 40s and 50s, and you get to, make choices for yourself. Your kids are going to be okay. This next chapter, a lot of times people talk, this kind of reminds me of, as your kids get older, a lot of people get sad. And I know you've got a kid going off to college next year. And, I think it's exciting that our kids are, becoming more independent, becoming adults. So that's something else that we're going to talk about as far as parenting goes. Like, how can we reframe that from I'm losing my child to I have this person that's wonderful and awesome that gets to be my friend, my child, my family for the rest of my life, and we get to move into this other relationship. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well.
So no topic is going to be left uncovered, right? So we're so glad. I mean, for this first episode, we are just so glad that you tuned in. And if you're ready to just really dive in, join us at episode 2. We're going to cover something that so many people are feeling, and so we
Yeah.
are so thankful for you. And thanks for joining us on the Aligned Podcast journey.